Commission. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Gallo?
Here.
Ms. DeSico? Here. Ms. Casali? Here. Mr. Bernardi?
Here.
Mr. Wexmonski?
Here.
Mr. Rapone?
Here.
Mr. Vire?
Here.
Chairman Moffett, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, I'm going to add one item under new business, the capital improvement plan that will be presented by the planner. Without objection, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Wexmonski.
Support.
Support by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next, approval of the minutes from April 28th.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Dalu, support by DeSico. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, two major items we have this evening under site plan. The first being number 14-11, PUD number 1, Lancaster at Central Park. This is a public hearing, so I'll begin by asking the secretary to read the notice.
Charter Township of Shelby, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission for the Charter Township of Shelby, Macomb County, Michigan, has received a request for approval of the following planned unit development. Applicant, Gregory L. Windingland, Lancaster at Central Park, 51237 Danview Technology Court, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. Proposed use, single-family community. Location, south of North Central Park, west of Van Dyke. Sidwell number 23-07-21-401-023 and 23-07-401-027. Site plan number 14-11, PUD number 1. Legal description is as follows. The Planning Commission will meet on Monday, May 12th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Shelby Municipal Building, 52700 Van Dyke, Shelby Township, Michigan, 586-726-7243 for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the planned unit development application. The application for planned unit development and the site plan may be examined at the Planning and Zoning Department in the municipal building Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Written comments may be submitted to the Planning Commission at the above address prior to the hearing. Oral comments will be heard during the public hearing. This notice is provided pursuant to the requirements of Michigan Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended. Shelby Township Planning Commission, Jerome Moffett, Chair, Raquel Moore, Secretary. Publication date was April 23rd, 2014. CNG newspaper. There were 596 property owners and 2 applicants notified on April 25th, 2014.
Great, thank you. Question to the attorney. Ms. Denowith, did the publication meet all legal requirements?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Could you briefly explain the uses under the present zoning and if this request is appropriate?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a planned unit development request, which is outlined in Section 1337 of the Shelby Township ordinances. This is a preliminary, this is a modification to an existing PUD. PUDs are also set forth under MCL 125.3503 of the Michigan statutes. This is currently set up as a modification, which is compatible with a previously approved PUD.
Great, thank you. Ms. Moore, did we receive any correspondence regarding this?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. Format for the public hearing will be as follows. The petitioner or his or her representative will give a presentation stating the reasons for the request. The commissioners may then ask questions of the petitioner. The floor will be then open to the public, and then finally the petitioner will be allowed to make concluding remarks. At this point, is the petitioner or representative here? If I could get your name and address for the record, too, please.
Greg Windham.
Good evening. Greg Windingland with Lombardo Homes, 51237 Danview Technology Court, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48315. Thank you for allowing me to make a presentation tonight. I'm here, as we discussed, about Lancaster at Central Park. It is proposed to be the 5th community within the overall Central Park development, developed quite some time ago through Grand Sakwa. There's 4 existing communities, all residential. There's Gardens and Meadows, which are single-family. There's Kensington, which is the fourplex units which Lombardo developed. And then there's Manners, which is the duplex community. This would be a single-family community that would be in part on acreage that was originally designed to be Phase 2 of Kensington at Central Park, and also on acreage that was subsequently approved as part of PUD number 2, which would have been multifamily. So overall, what we're proposing is 116 single-family homes that would go on what would have otherwise been, I think, 174 multiple units of some sort or other. We think it's very consistent with the other products within the community. We understand that we have to abide by all the overall restrictions within Central Park, including all brick on the first floor, items like that, street width, sidewalks, all those types of features. We have met with the Master Association as well as the 4 sub-associations. We've invited members of the community at large, of the Central Park community. We've invited them and held a public meeting here, public from the standpoint of we invited them. I mean, it was no official capacity on your part. We invited them to a meeting here where we made a presentation not too different from what is in the packet you received. We showed them how the community had originally been envisioned to be developed and what we're proposing. We have the written support of 4 of the 5 associations. The Meadows Association is the one we are still waiting on. We believe we'll get that support. We do not have it in hand yet, but for the other 4, the other 3 being the residential communities as well as the Master Association, we have their written support for that. I would love to go on, but in the interest of time, I'd just be happy to answer questions if you'd like.
Okay. To the board, are there questions of the petitioner? Being none. This is the only public hearing the Planning Commission will hold on this special land use request. All remarks will be entered into the record for Township Board evaluation. We are a recommending body, and the Township Board will evaluate our recommendation. The Township Board will make a final decision on this request. At this point, if there's anyone from the audience that wishes to ask any questions or to comment, you're free to come up. Just state your name and address and sign in, please.
My name is Ron Idzek. I'm at 50139 Scott Court in the Kensington subdivision. If you'd put that picture back up, I'd like to explain make a couple comments, please, if they'd put the picture back up.
Sure, they're working on it.
Okay, on Van Dyke, you see where the Packard plant is, right along next to the Packard plant there from Van Dyke, there's called Kensington Park. That's the entrance to everything in there. There's also an entrance on 22 Mile Road. I don't live on Thomas Court, which is directly north of this subdivision. There's a curved road along Kensington there, and there's supposed to be an exit, and I don't know where it's at. Can you tell me where it's at?
Okay, well, how this will work is we're going to take all the questions, and then he's going to come up and
There's
answer them.
there's going to be an exit heading north onto Central Park out of the Lancaster subdivision. There's a curved road there. Depending upon where this exit appears, that traffic's not, you're not going to be able to see people coming around the court. That's one comment. Another comment, there's supposedly an entrance off of Van Dyke next to that medical center. And I don't know, that might be a nightmare. There's also the main entrance on Kensington, and I don't know if the Shelby Department's got any word. I've heard many words that we're going to need a light there with all these new people entering this subdivision. There should be a light on Kensington Park and Van Dyke, and that's not your commission. That's probably another commission to take care of that situation. Those are the main concerns I have about the traffic situation coming next to the medical center, where there's an entrance with no light or nothing there. I don't know how the people are going to turn into the Lancaster sub. And then off of Van Dyke on Kensington, there's a curved road. Depending upon where that exit out of Lancaster is. I don't know what's going to happen there. There's also one exit on, get my bearings straight here, on the back end of this Lancaster. I don't think that's going to be a problem. That doesn't sound to me a problem, but the traffic situation is going to be a nightmare if we don't make some corrections to wherever the entrances and the exits are, along with a light on Kensington Park and Van Dyke.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you sign in? Sir, did you sign in?
Pardon me?
Did you sign in? Okay.
Sorry.
This mean lady over here yells at me if I don't get you to
You
sign.
didn't write my address? I'll give it to you.
Do.
Okay.
Okay. KA North Central Park.
Can I just make one other comment also?
Sure.
Being a member of Kensington, initially, this whole Lancaster, which has been modified in the past, should have looked like Kensington, and now they're going to single-family homes, which has been approved by your board. We have 2 more courts left in Kensington that I hope Lombardo doesn't come back and change it to like this, because that would even make Kensington a little bit different. There's 2 courts left that should be 4 buildings with 4 units in each, or 16. So there's 32 more houses, if you will, 32 more occupants in Kensington on 2 courts. And I hope you as a board don't make a decision to change that to single-family homes either. Thank you.
I'm Robert Borowski, 8926 Chestnut Run, Shelby Township. The only question I have is with these homes, what size min and max are they going to be, and what price range are they going to be? Because my only objection is the last sequence of buildings that Lombardo built, those single-family 3 bedrooms home, greatly depreciated the area. And the looks of it, with that extra added street on there, it looked like something was added in. And I don't know if this other phase is going to be similar to those homes, because the complex, or I'm sorry, the unit that I currently own has depreciated values, been fluctuating up and down, and I don't know and I fought some of the assessment with the assessor's office, but now with these things going in there, I don't know what's going to happen with the assessed values in this area.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? One last time? Okay, thank you. Mr. Nguyen, your comments.
Just a general comment and a few specific ones. The general one is, as the market has changed, obviously, the development Central Park has changed. I think what I find particularly meaningful about this is that it improves the continuity with having single family on the whole southern half of this project from Central Park south. So I think that does add something. It's an improvement over what was originally improved. It's a good balance. There are a list of comments here, none of which are terribly significant. We didn't do a preliminary review on this. Site condos come in directly to the Planning Commission. So most of these comments are relatively minor and easily corrected. I did share them with Mr. Windingland. The only 2 that I think merit some attention would be number 12 on our list, which is from a building director, number 8 on the engineer's list, that deal with some easements and how those affect setbacks. If there's any impact, we would, if it did anything, it would maybe reduce the number of units, not increase them. So it's something I'd want to revisit with Mr. Windingland before they submit it for final review and approval. But the comments in themselves are pretty minor and easily corrected, and I recommend approval.
Did the Department of Roads take a look at this? Did they review this?
Yes, they did, and they had some very minor design changes to the southern entrance.
Okay,
Acceleration tapers is what they've asked them to add.
okay. But in terms of a lighted Kensington,
That's been under discussion from the moment this was approved, and they would have to determine, the county would have to determine if there's a warrant for it yet.
okay.
And we've brought to their attention multiple times, and I think they've done a study, but they haven't reached a conclusion that it meets that requirement yet.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Wendling, then? No, there was concern about traffic at a curve on Kensington Boulevard.
Could I go over there and point out?
Yeah, I think we've got a microphone you can travel with you.
Would you like a pointer?
I'm not qualified to operate that. Thank you.
High tech.
The gentleman from Kensington, first off, something I should have mentioned, which was one of his last concerns, was the two courtyards that remain at Kensington Central Park. I believe they're Walter and Stebbins. Everything. The courtyards, I think they're Walter and Stebbins, the two that are not completed. They're this one and this one. In the last PUD amendment that we did, where we converted part of this to single family, we, in the PUD agreement, made the commitment that we would keep those as fourplex units in that courtyard configuration. We also made the commitment they would be ranch, so there would not be any misunderstandings about that. And we would try to build them as architecturally compatible as the existing units when we do go to build those. Obviously, we need to update for building codes, fire safety, ADA compliance, things like that. But we did make that commitment to the Kensington residents, and that's in the existing PUD. We're not proposing any changes at all to that. As far as going back to his earlier comments and about the traffic, the one connection that was referenced at the northern part, we looked at where we could locate that the best. Originally, we looked at continuing straight north on Alexander and bringing it out here, and we looked at how the headlights would shine right on the center building of Thomas Court. We didn't think that was desirable or fair to the residents on Thomas Court. It also presented a problem with the proximity to East Central Park, so we wanted to push that connection to the east. It seemed like the logical place to put it was opposite the other street connection for Thomas Court. With the site distance that we have, there's no other vertical amenities that'll be in that area. We think that that's going to be the safest place to put it. We did look at that pretty extensively as far as where to locate that. The other connection he mentioned to Van Dyke is down here. And as Mr. Wynn indicated, the Macomb County Department of Roads did offer some comments on that. And then the third connection is, again, straight across from an existing road connection, and we felt that was the safest and most practical location to put that. The second gentleman asked what size homes and price points in that. With the submittal, we had provided some samples of the homes that we propose to offer. They will range in square footage from a minimum of probably 1,800 to 1,900 square feet up to a maximum of probably 3,200 to 3,400 square feet. So they will fit in, as we mentioned earlier, with the homes in the Meadows and the Gardens single-family communities. The price points are always determined by the market, probably because of Shelby Township and Utica schools. We're probably going to be in the mid to upper 250s to start, and those will be base prices based on similar product in Macomb Township and other areas in this area. That's probably where we're going to be in price. Again, Shelby Township, highly desirable. Utica schools, highly desirable. So we're looking very forward to that. Setbacks that Mr. Wynn mentioned, yeah, we will certainly work with him and the engineering to make sure we provide the appropriate easements for the storm sewers that are in question there.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Moved,
Support.
supported, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Our recommendation to the board must be based on the following standards: compatibility with adjacent land uses, consistent with and promote the intent and purpose of the special land use, compatibility with the natural environment, consistent with the capacities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, and the adequacy of public access to this site. At this point, we can recommend approval, disapprove the request, or table it to evaluate it further. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Moore.
I move to recommend approval of Lancaster of Central Park PUD Amendment 14-11, PUD number 1, for the following reasons. Number 1, the proposed amendment is consistent with the pattern and scale of development in the original Central Park PUD. Number 2, the revised plans provide a compatible relationship to the abutting development within the PUD. Number 3, this PUD revision results in a reduction in density and number of dwelling units as originally approved. Number 4, a revised site plan must be submitted, responding to all department comments.
Is there support of that motion?
Support.
Okay, supported by DeSico. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Commissioner Pone?
Yes.
Commissioner Wasponski?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Good luck. Okay, next item, site plan number 14-13, PUD number 2, Longhorn Estates. Is the petitioner or representative here? Would you mind maybe teeing this up for us?
Sure.
What we're doing this evening on this request?
This is the property at the southwest corner of 25 and Van Dyke. It's a couple of hundred acres, and it was approved for a planned unit development back in 2006. Mixed-use development, which included single-family, multiple family, and some commercial. The only portions of it that had been completed thus far is the bank at the corner, which hasn't opened yet, and the single-family portion, which is along the western boundary. Those lots, everything's been approved, the road is completed. You'll see models coming up this year. The overall PUD, when it was approved, kind of provides the framework or the overall plan for the entire development. And then what we've done is when each phase came in, we had a separate public hearing and reviewed the details of those phases. Had a chance to talk to Mr. Epping and his client recently, and they've introduced some changes to the product mix for the rest of the PUD, and that's what they wanted to present tonight. Recognizing that, again, what we're doing tonight is reconsidering the preliminary approval. And as they come in with specific phases, then we go back and do the detailed site plan and have a public hearing. In the interest of letting everybody know that this has changed, we did provide the notices to surrounding residents so that they would have a chance to at least become familiar with the project, recognizing that this, when they come in, again, a formal public hearing will be established.
Okay, so this evening, we're just determining if this new concept or the adjusted concept has merit.
Right, correct.
And that the actual detail, the specifics will be reviewed at
Right.
public hearing.
And I think it's been 8 years since we approved this. The market's changed, and I think they're trying to respond to that and do some enhancements, and I think they've made some very good adjustments.
Okay, good, thank you. Mr. Epic, if I could get your name and address for the record?
Sure, my name is Jim Epping. I'm with J. Epping Partners at 9336 Sashabaw Road in Clarkston. I'm representing tonight Longhorn Estates and Edward Mancini and his family and their company. Mr. Mancini is here tonight if you have questions directly for the applicant. Again, thank you, Mr. Wynn. Appreciate that. And we spent an awful lot of time with you in 2004, 5, 6, 7, so we won't take up too much tonight, but certainly answer any questions. As Mr. Wynn said, we had a 132-acre PUD approved in 2006 with a number of different phases. The bank and the single-family home home neighborhood are going in. And in this particular case, with the downturn in the economy, time from that point of view is on our side. And as the economy picks up and we look forward to beginning the future phases, it really became a smart idea to revisit the plan and not build something that we weren't confident in, like we were in a different economy. And so although the approved plan is on the lower left-hand side, I'm sorry, right-hand side, the proposed modified plan is on the easel. So from a planning point of view, they look very, very similar. But there's an awful lot of details, changes that we made that we think are going to make it a much more successful neighborhood. On the approved plan, the biggest change was along that angular boulevard. There was 186 three-story townhomes that were originally approved. This was kind of that urban loft idea of a first-floor garage and a number of stairs. We actually had those back-to-back, and at the time in '06, it seemed as we did enough market studies, we knew it would have been very successful at that time. We looked more closely at that in today's world and realized that that product in Shelby Township at that quantity wasn't going to be successful in terms of sales or absorption. And so we did continued market studies and have identified a 10-unit unit building. In fact, I'll have a this 10-unit building.
Jim.
Building we feel very confident will be very, very successful. It's currently being built just north of the site along 25 Mile, just north of 25 along Van Dyke. And that same unit will be here. From a density point of view, we're thank you. From a density point of view, what we're proposing is to actually reduce the overall density of the multiple family portion of the project from 437 approved units in '06 to 388 units. So we're proposing a reduction of 49 units of multifamily housing. What we also did is said, okay, when we're rearranging those buildings, bringing in what we know will be a more successful building, what else can we do to the site plan? Our earlier plan, if we really look at it and evaluate how people are going to move through that site, we realized that we had some pretty tricky streets and maneuvering. So the new plan substantially simplifies the street system. It really creates a block system which allows us to intertwine green space throughout each block as opposed to just one central park. And so we know that from a green point of view, it's going to be a more livable neighborhood. From an emergency access point of view, from a fire truck point of view, our roads are much straighter. We really create a block system so fire emergency vehicles can travel more safely. I mentioned the park system. We're proud that these changes actually increase. We were already with the original PUD at about 19 acres of open space. We've increased that to 21 acres, and we've added an extra 2 acres of open space and substantially have reduced the impervious surface in terms of the roads. The previous units needed a back alley. Now we really just have a street system. Our original plan proposed 250 residents in a senior housing in the triangular area on the southern edge. That is still proposed. That'll come in as its own development in terms of exactly what those buildings will look like, but that senior component is still envisioned and still proposed here. On the original approved plans, we had 124,000 square feet of retail along Van Dyke at 25 and Van Dyke. We've taken a closer look at that. Our concept was always to have 1 or 2 major anchors and more of a village retail experience so we could have small shops, restaurants, those type of things. We knew that sidewalks and that type of a retail experience would be good for the neighborhood and good for Shelby. We still have maintained that, but what we've done is learned enough about what the market really will look for to be successful. And so previously we had the buildings perpendicular to Van Dyke. We've now turned those, brought those across Van Dyke. But if you look at the detail in your package, we've really created kind of an urban streetscape there. It's not just a strip plaza, but we've created plazas and areas for outdoor cafes and landscaping and those type of things. So we know that that retail is going to be much more successful. The original number was 124. We're now proposing 77,000 square feet of retail, so a reduction in retail as well. The last piece, is this working? The last piece is this triangular piece right here. And the one thing that we've learned with this development is not to assume that the market is going to move quickly enough that we know exactly what every piece is. So you'll see in your packets with this last 5 acres, we're proposing that that is land banked for a future phase. We've provided in your package on the second page 2 different alternatives for that triangle. The first alternative would be to convert it to retail and to keep that very, very similar in terms of quantity to the original approved plan. Originally, we were approved for 124. This shows 124,000 square feet if we were to build out that phase in retail, still keeping our residential density down. If, on the other hand, we see that the retail only wants to be at that 77,000, residential is going well, we've created a courtyard situation here with retail where we would add an additional 26 units of residential, taking that residential unit then up to 414, still well below the approved density. So that's the only part of the plan that we're saying we feel very good about. Everything else, let's wait and let the market continue to decide this. Realistically, that's a few years away as we continue to build out the rest. And of course, we'd work with the township on those approvals. At this point, again, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Mr. Mancini's here if you have any additional questions, and look forward to keep building here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nguyen, did you have any other comments?
No, just that again, this was meant to be preliminary, the concept approval, and this is a refinement of even the previous concept plan. When they return with a particular phase, we'd have all the details of a site plan with building elevations and materials and landscaping. So, you know, there's nothing missing here. It's just what comes next.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, is this project all going to be like one phase, and you're going to start the commercial and all of these residential? And what you're looking at on proposed 2014 site plan, and there is option 1 or 2, which direction you might go the most?
I'm not sure that I know. I think that both of them are viable, and what we wanted to do is make sure that we could draw and know that each of them would work in terms of a site plan. You know, we know that the circulation works. We know that parking works. We feel good about that. It's really going to be a market decision. I can see pros and cons of both, but I think that's the point of trying to determine what the market's going to want.
Hello, Ed Mancini with Longhorn. We still want to keep it as the proposed as commercial, but we want to have the option for later, in case the commercial does not come to fruition, we'll then ask to go back to residential. But for today, we're still keeping it as a commercial component.
In terms of phasing, Ed, you might have this. Yes, you're right. Ultimately, this will be a number of different phases. Some of them could happen concurrently. It's certainly possible to think that the retail could get started at the same time, dividing this up into future phases. Right now, the single family is all one phase, which is underway. It is more than likely that the next phase would be right along that Village Boulevard, and that these would be future phases as well.
Back to the same planning we had back in 2006. The second phase would be this second boulevard going all the way to Van Dyke. Included with that would be this street, which is called Legacy Park, which would connect this. So to get a little bit of the 4-plexes and the 12-plexes and some of the, I believe this is a 6 or 8-plex. That's an 8-plex. So we get a little bit of those 3 products here. This would be a future phase when this gets absorbed. And then the commercial, we plan to be, you know, concurrent with phase 2. Well, as long as the demand's there. And senior, we like to get that going pretty quick also. So as soon as we, as soon as I get done here tonight, I'm going to tell engineering to get going. So that way we can get this submitted per the township ordinances. And this will be falling right behind it with the commercial, and this will be held off for the later phases.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chairman,
Fire.
ready for a motion?
I sure am.
It's not a public hearing, but
Oh,
in case.
yeah. Does anyone want to have any questions or want to make comments? Or you're free, I'm sure Mr. Mancini and Mr. Empick will stick around after the meeting if you want to talk, take a look at the plans, but coming up.
Hello, my name's Dan Imby, 53866 Aurora Park, Shelby Township, 48316. Everything looks better on the plans as opposed to the first original ones, so I like that. But a few issues on what they've done so far. I had, maybe you guys can answer the questions or they could, but one issue was like our catch basins from our house, when the water runs into it, it runs exactly out right away. There is no still hanging water. I know the ones they put in, there's 3 feet or 4 feet of dead space, which the water is stagnant and sitting there. I was wondering if they're ever going to, fill them up with concrete to bring them up, or it runs out, or the water just sits there because it's, close to our property for mosquitoes and that. That was one thing. The other thing is, if you look, we're down in the left-hand corner, so they have that little common area there, and that common area is actually a lot bigger than what it looks there, which to me looks like the property shrunk. A lot of the lots look like they're a lot bigger. And even on the original rendering, if you actually scale our property compared to the properties that are there now, when I paced them off this past summer, I come up with 20 feet shorter than our property depths. Yet when you go look at the rendering, they look like they're 20 to 30 feet longer than our depths, which means the houses are going to be on us a little tighter, which, is deceiving, I think. And when you look at that. Like I say that, and I don't know if because they hurry up and got the road in or what the deal, or if anyone measures it, what the depth is, but like I say, that means it's going to be a lot tighter on our houses, which I think is not fair to what you show a rendering, then you go and alter it. That was one thing. Another thing, and also when they put the easements in and came and did for the easements, tore them up for the catch basins and the sewers, they still haven't really cleaned up the neighbors that they tore up yet. They're still all, down and dipping, and we made a complaint. They did come up and fix the sewer areas, which were 3 feet deep of, missing soil. But they're still, not my house as much because I went and hand did mine, but the other neighbors, they're still all tore up and kind of not in good shape right now. So those were my main 3 concerns, especially the lot sizes. I don't know if they, if there's a certain restrictions for depth, but I'm telling you, they're a lot shorter than what they show on there, because they made that common area a lot bigger than, what it actually is. So that's what I had to, say.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Nguyen, did you have any comments on?
Well, that drawing there that's not meant to be the final drawing. When that plan was approved, they were approved with certain dimensions, and they need to be there.
Right.
The issues on catch basins, I can email DPW tomorrow and have them follow up.
All right, thanks. Sure.
As far as the drainage, the site is low, and we are bringing in material to balance out the site better, to get proper drainage. So I'm sure that problem will be resolved here this summer, early this summer, because we're bringing in material as we speak when it's dry weather. And I'll also address some of the backyards. If there's something that's been disturbed, I'll get someone out there right away to get it cleaned up and, make sure the residents are happy. Was there anything else?
Engineer, these are CAD drawings, of course, but the engineered plan should reflect exactly this. And the original, I believe Urban Land was the engineer on the single-family residential, and those were all approved, and certainly no dimensions have changed.
Okay. Anyone else wish to comment?
Hi, I'm Patty Eisenbraun. Address is 54632 Morningside. I'm pleased that the density is lower. because that's a lot of homes. I think before it was proposed 550, but I just want to make a comment on two things. One, I noticed there wasn't a decel lane on 25 Mile turning into the residential street as of yet. Is there going to be one? And then secondly, can the developer comment on what do you mean by an anchor for the retail? Is it like a CVS? Is that an anchor, or is it a Carson's or something like that? I was just curious about that. And lastly, just something to think about when these big developments go in. I don't know if you have kids at Mallow, Morgan, Eisenhower, but there's 40-some kids in these classes. And I think with all these big developments going in, it really impacts the class sizes. And so I just wanted to just make that note that every time we put these developments in with this high density, it really impacts our kids in the schools. And I know it's a completely different department, but it is something to think about because, my kids are in classes with 40, 45 kids, and it's a shame. So those are my only comments. Oh, and I'm just personally, I hate hearing the beep, beep, beep. There was all last summer, and it's already starting. And for me, I work late, like out of my house till sometimes 2 in the morning. And 7 o'clock, you hear the thing starting up, and beep, 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 and just kind of annoying. So that's all. That's just my gripe for today.
Mr. Chairman?
But it is annoying.
Let me answer the question on the school district impact. We obviously don't have any jurisdiction over that, but we share that information with the school district on a regular basis as new plans come in, and there's a new person taking over that position. And we've had long conversations. I've sent him an email with all the new development projects proposed, all the number of units. So, that's part of their planning, and so we're coordinating that much better than we ever did in the past. So
It's just, like I said, I know it's just a completely different department, but it's just the schools are so packed right now. It's just, and when these developments go in, it's going to be Eisenhower, it's going to be Mallow, it's going to be Morgan, and I just feel bad for the kids, so.
Okay, over here, there's someone.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michelle Massoud. I'm a commercial property owner on Van Dyke, south of 25 Mile, near the creek. And my issue is, I hope someone is addressing the issue of the drainage after the big development at 25, south of 25, west of Van Dyke. I'm south of the running stream, and my land has been cut off. I've lost 20 feet or more from what has transpired between the road and the construction going on over there. The way that the drainage is coming into the creek and the way it's flowing and it's hitting my land, then it turns north. I'm losing land, and I would like that to be addressed somehow.
All right.
Thank you.
Could you sign in, please? Anyone else? Okay.
I am Brian Matei, the 53990 Aurora Park, right behind there. One of my comments was about the kind of construction with a beep, 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 kind of reminded me of it from last summer was when they were working on the project. I work from home actually, so I heard that every day, and that with the rat that's shaking on my house because they're doing so much site work on it. But then so I heard it every, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I think that's when it's scheduled to stop. And then one day on a Sunday, I heard it also, and actually, I went in my pajamas out there and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Sundays you're not supposed to be working on Sundays." They said, "Oh no, we were approved for a Sunday. We're trying to get the street in before the end of the year." And I just would like to request it from you folks, if you could please give me one day off and not approve these Sunday days of work. You know, I understand you need to get things done before the winter hits, but when you don't work at all for 8 straight days sometimes, then all of a sudden, oh no, now we have to get it all done on weekends and everything. It just gets a little crazy. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'd appreciate it if you guys give us a break a little bit.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none. Mr. Mancini, did you want to?
I'll try to answer some of those questions. The exit going onto 25 Mile Road, there was designed a decel lane, but we worked closely with the road commission, and instead of putting that decel lane in, we funded it and put a deposit in with the commission, because they're going to redo 25 Mile Road and use that money to rebuild the street instead of building it, tearing out, and then rebuilding it again. So that's why it wasn't put in, but it will be with the road improvements on 25. And I think per the agreement, if they don't do the road improvements, then within a year, for some reason, if they slip through the cracks, they'll refund our money so we can put it in immediately.
It has been approved, and it's on schedule for the summer.
Okay. The second issue, the retail anchor. I am working with some retail anchors I think will really improve the sites. I'm dealing with some fitness centers. I don't want to give names or anything, but for the box you see on there, I'm working with a nice fitness center that would be really nice amenity for that area. And what's the next question? Oh, for the lady that talk about some flooding issues. We are working with that drain with the DEQ and FEMA, and we're proposing to do some floodway improvements to help drainage through there, which will hopefully alleviate whatever problem she's having. But as an added effort with that pond and have some extra storage, it should take care of any flooding in that area. So they're actually doing a study right now. We're funding.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vire.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to recommend to the Township Board that this project has merit and the potential to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance and authorize the submission of a final plan.
Support.
Okay, moved by Vire, support by Apone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Commissioner Apone?
Yes.
Commissioner Wexmonsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Good luck. Okay, now next under new business, we have capital improvement plan. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, for the first time, the Planning Commission participated in the review of the capital improvement budget. Each year, each township department submits funding requests for capital expenditures, and that typically involves physical assets with a 5-year life expectancy exceeding $10,000. There are many requests that are submitted. There's a team of us that evaluate those based on some rating criteria and then make a recommendation to the board. The state statute regarding planning and zoning actually mandates the Planning Commission to review the capital budget to make sure that those improvements that deal with land improvements or building improvements are consistent with the master plan. Those typically would be if somebody wanted to build a new park or fire stations, utility extensions, things like that, that somehow would impact the master plan. We've identified 6 projects this year. 2 of those are repeats from the previous years, the new fire station, southern end of the township, and possible relocation of Fire Station 4 to the northeast. 21 Mile Road resurfacing, some water main loops or gaps in the system, extension of sidewalks in the Stony and Metro Creek Trail. So again, these aren't major improvements, but we really want to establish that process of doing this more diligently and relate that to the master plan. So there's a summary of those projects in here. I've offered a motion supporting this because it has to go to the board next. The board then looks at all the projects. Obviously, you're not concerned if Parks and Rec buys a new lawnmower. You know, that's really not within your purview. But it is, the board will take those other factors into account. It's a way of kind of coordinating the budget process a little more effectively. In the last 2 years, I think it was a lot more effective.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nguyen?
Mr. Nguyen, is there funds to fund these already, or that's gonna come from what budget is paying for whatever it needs?
There is a capital improvements budget now. It used to be, it put in different accounts, and now we're trying to consolidate all that into a one capital budget. There's obviously more than can be spent. That's why we rate the projects in terms of prioritizing them. But there is, the board has established that budget for starting last year.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, that's a very optimistic view by the fire department, I would say, to have a $6.5 million outlay of money in this year. I don't know who put that project up front, and being it a very important project. Was that the planning department, or was that the fire department?
That was in the fire department.
I thought so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If Mr. Nguyen had $6 million, he'd probably have a different set of toys. All right, if there are no other questions, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casale.
I move to recommend approval of the projects contained in the 2015-2020 capital improvement plan, as each of these projects are consistent with the master plan and other approved planning studies.
Okay, been moved by Casale, support by Zasico. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Vire?
Yes.
Commissioner Apone?
Yes.
Commissioner Waxmansky?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Next item, Planning Director's report.
We had 21 sign applications and 3 temporary use permits.
Okay.
Now we're looking forward to the time when we get all the firework tent applications.
How fun. Okay. Next, there's nobody out there. Oh. Any comments from the floor? No? They're shaking their heads. If not, one more
Motion to dismiss.
motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Support.
Support.
And been supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.